The number one talking point amongst the entire hacker community.
We're going to be talking about strategic security.
It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Get compute out of a federated network.
I don't really have control of my car, but I trust it.
These guys have been running a great podcast.
Remember how the all-inclusive holiday turned out not to have any lunch or dinner or drinks?
Yeah, DNS, what a headache. What a bind.
Looking forward to it?
Yes.
It's going to be cool.
Over to Annie and Helen.
I'm Helen, Plews, and I'm with my colleague here, Andy Farnell, and along with Ed Navard, who's not here tonight, we are the Cyber Show. And as Paul rightly said, we do podcasts for education in cybersecurity and technology. So what do we do? We do hacking, we do cybersecurity, both operational and strategic. Basically, in a nutshell, we educate and investigate, we advocate and instigate, we analyse, advise, we inform, and we perform.
Because cybersecurity is the subject that nobody wants to talk about, right? It's counterintuitive, creepy and spooky, and sometimes extraordinarily frustrating. We're come here tonight because we're not just hackers. We're both from previous careers in arts, media and entertainment, as artists and as technical people. And so tonight we're here to talk to you about strategic cybersecurity and the cloud.
So, you know lots about cloud, surely, Andy?
I've looked at clouds from both sides now, up and down, and still somehow it's clouds illusions, I recall.
Oh, you really don't know clouds at all. There's only a few laughing. I didn't get that song either. I think it's beyond my head. Well, no wonder, because so few words have had so much said about them that few people understand. So let me help you out. What is it that you don't understand about cloud?
Well, let's start by talking about costs, because cloud's a bit of a buzzword, and managers like buzzwords, and the buzz that managers get from cloud is making efficiencies, is saving money, is eliminating people. So we wonder whether or not selling out the skills, the talent, people that you have for magic that you buy from somebody else is really a good deal. So does cloud really save money, Helen?
Oh, do you remember that cheap holiday that we went on where the flights were only £29? Should have said a lot.
The 0.5-star norovirus hotel. Yes, when the returns were 350 each, is it?
Yeah, that's the one. And remember how the all-inclusive holiday turned out not to have any lunch or dinner or drinks?
Or breakfast, or the pool was closed temporarily.
For the entire 2 weeks that the families were there, yeah, that was great.
And then we got hit by that weird tax at the checkout.
I remember that. And then we caught that weird stuff going through all our things in the hotel room.
Evil maid.
Yeah, the evil maid in the hotel. Creepy.
Yeah, well, that's quality. Quality. Happy days, huh?
Well, I guess it kind of rings true with some cloud services, because we have two things when we talk about clouds, really. We're talking about consumer cloud, asymmetrical bandwidth, easy to put your data in, not so easy to get it back out, and a little bit costly when that happens. But we're also talking, Andy, about data mining. Did you ever wonder how Dropbox make all that lovely money? No? That's because they're only scanning your stuff to meet their legal requirements. No other reason whatsoever.
Legal requirements, yes, for checking for child pornography and terrorism, of course.
And also, while they're there, any illegal movies that you might have on there.
Well, we're not speaking to users of consumer cloud. These guys are professionals, yeah? They're interested in using AWS and Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure and things like that. Things from respectable establishments where you can craft your own virtual machines and containers and upload them through a secure transport and have them on a nice encrypted file system.
Yeah, which is then decrypted on a custom hypervisor somewhere we don't know in a US data center, which are then subject to letters of national security. So they can't even tell you that they've been forced to backdoor all of your files.
Yeah, but we got hardware. We've got trusted platform modules to deal with that.
Okay, like Cavium or Marvel, who just became the sole manufacturer of trusted computing semiconductors. They essentially have a vast monopoly over the HSMs used by all the major cloud providers. There's unfortunately as well, only recently have we found out, potentially, that the random number generator for the dual elliptic curve, which was implemented as a NIST standard, has likely just been found to have a bloody great big backdoor in it.
Okay.
That was only found 2 weeks ago by the lovely Jacob Applebaum in his PhD thesis. That's amazing. But it's already the #1 talking point amongst the entire hacker community.
All right, you win. From now on, we'll have a staycation and party on-prem.
Oh, that's not good. And we'll come back to that later because that's unnecessary because not all cloud is fundamentally insecure. Maybe when you're rapid prototyping cloud deployments for broadcast, you can still test the designs in a public environment like AWS, so long as you don't compromise your secure keys or your data.
But what kind of data and things are we talking about? I mean, what do we want to move around? Is it application data? Is it entire platforms, or is it tool chains? I mean, and let's not confuse the migration of custom applications with the interoperability of the data.
Well, most cloud solutions are modularized, right? So we're not just moving a simple VM image. We've got databases to replicate. We've got to set up our Nginx proxy to switch. We've messed up all our DNS.
Yeah, DNS, what a headache. What a bind. Well, what other examples can you give?
What about your managed Postgres instance? You can probably migrate to self-hosting when they hook up those prices, which they're going to, right? But what else do you have in your cloud services stack? You got your push notifications and messages, your routing, your payment gateways, authentication, file storage, web application firewalls, geocoding. To make successful migrations, you've got to move all of that. We read a fantastic quote, actually, from Cloudflare that we'd like to share with you now. Today, the big clouds have built business models on capturing your data, making it hard to move your data. These captivity clouds will lure you in with one product and make it near impossible to mix and match competitive offerings across the cloud space. And that was from Matthew Prince, who is the CEO of Cloudflare.
Oh, so says Matthew Prince, CEO of Cloudflare, in a giant advertisement for his company, which blocks millions of vulnerable Tor users, man-in-the-middle's TLS certificates, and harbors far-right hate groups. Tell me, Helen, what amazing products can I buy from Cloudflare?
I am so glad you asked, because instead of Captivity Cloud, you can buy Connectivity Clouds, connected, secure ecosystems for all of your needs, so long as you stay within Cloudflare's shield of protection.
Wow, I feel better already. So it seems to me that they're building more walled gardens like the ones that ossified the social media space. Everybody's playing the same game, aren't they?
Yeah, basically. But we will get real portability and interoperability when we wield the EU Digital Markets Act and then beat the vendors around the head with it repeatedly.
And actually, this space is getting physical, because just the other day, according to Reuters, French police acting for the Anti-Competition Authority raided NVIDIA's cloud offices in a dawn raid as part of an investigation into antitrust and anti-competitive practices.
Imagine just working at your tech company and the police are bashing down the door like, whoa. So the stakes are very high. You know, the clamour for cloud supremacy to corral your business into their ranches is pretty intense at the moment.
Isn't the whole point of cloud, though, that applications are supposed to be cloud agnostic?
Well, is the Pope agnostic? Do you think that he minds if you convert to Islam and then back to Christianity via Buddhism? No. And nor does Google, nor does Amazon. They don't care. They just want you to stay and they need your money.
Can't containers help us with this sort of thing?
Well, containers may look attractive, but they're C groups in a Linux kernel. True, jails and Flatpak seems modular until you try to take them apart and rebuild them on different architecture. You are essentially moving one box to another, which will always have security implications, right?
Then security implications are having to rebuild the intrusion detection systems and firewall rules and everything like that. It doesn't just go from A to B. So
exactly. So security, you need to change the slide. This is why we're getting messed up. Change the slide. We'll get to a quote in a minute and they won't be up there. Exactly. So if we push our security out to the edge as a managed solution, it means that it's not your security anymore. And if it's not your security, then it's not security, just full stop, because you're relying on an outside third party to do that for you. Can you trust them? Do you know their name? Because I've met some of them. They're not always trustworthy, trust me. Only real portable objects that you've got are lightweight VMs, where the entire config is just a simple text line like Geeks.
GUIX,
Yeah,
geeks.
that geeks. not geeks like us. For security, we do need to build that on a mutable basis. It really helps.
Well, so many things I would have done, but cloud capital got in my way.
Strategic security is what we've been speaking here tonight, and it is a really high level of cybersecurity. It is essentially the preservation of the ability to operate and to make future choices. In September, the Greek financier Yanis Varoufakis stated, as private equity asset strips all the material wealth around us, cloud capital goes about the business of asset stripping our brains. If each of us is to reclaim ownership of our individual minds, we need to collectively take ownership of cloud capital instead of submitting to a few feudal overlords. It will be damn hard, but it's the only way we can turn our cloud-based artifacts from a means of behavior modification to a means of emancipation.
We came here tonight to put a question into your minds, something for you to think about. Now, I know that this is cloud native meeting. It's not a SIMPT meeting, but I'd just like you to ponder the meaning of the letter P in SIMPT, which is production, producers. And the question is, are you producers, directors, creators, originators, software engineers, makers, or are you the product? Are you missing the great opportunity that we should not be renting cloud from feudal overlords? People like us should be building the cloud. We should be building networks of distributed transcoders, VFX arrays, render farms in our own technology, in our own data centers. We should be setting standards, and making our own ecosystem. Otherwise, we are going to lose control. And Helen will have some interesting things to say about what we think about trust in the future, in the age of post-trust, post-truth, and the appearance of AI, and what it is going to mean when you switch on your TV or radio, and whether or not you have any veracity, verification, and trust in what you see. And what we do in this space is going to be a huge part of that.
I mean, at the moment, as educators and as parents, even when your children come to you and say, how do I understand truth? I say, and I know many other people do, say, well, go and look at the media, because the media is regulated and it has to do, not all of it, I get that, but most of the media behaves very well. But we're living in a time now of complete misinformation and AI. We can now pretend whole wars are happening when they're not. We're going very rapidly into that. So we need to have a very strong, very secure broadcasting group so that we can remain at the top as the truth tellers, so that people look to us when they're confused and understand that the people in this room are the ones keeping society afloat. Because without consensus and without information getting to the right people across the board, we don't have a society. We have a mess.
So when we talk about strategic cybersecurity, it's not just the cybersecurity of the boxes, it's not just the cybersecurity of the software. We think it's a really way of talking about national security and a way of talking about the security of our way of life and our trust in truth. So thanks for listening.
And any questions you have before we all rush off to the pub? It would be great.
One question. You were talking about everyone managing their own clouds. Private clouds. I mean, how do you propose to kind of replicate something like AWS CloudFront, for example? So, you have your storage globally on edge locations. How do you propose something like that happens with a private cloud? And also the cost involved as well, running your own private cloud. So,
well, there's two good questions there. I mean, one is physical location, is how do you have this distribution of things, yeah? Because, you're not going to, it's not really a cloud when it's a cloud in your basement, yeah? It's a what's the phrase? I had a bottle full of steam. You need to federate things. You need to work with other people. You need to work with other people who are also interested, have the same interests as you. And so much of what we confuse the word cloud with is the notion of distributed technologies, distributed systems, distributed operating systems, which can actually run across nodes. Look at things like SETI at home, for example. You know, there are ways now to build overlay networks in terms of communication, but overlay networks in terms of compute, in which we get compute out of a federated network of massive CPUs without any care about where they're actually geolocated. So it's about building associations and about building common interests in order to be able to compete with companies which have billions of dollars of real estate in Iron Mountains, and they've bought up all of these things. Maybe we're late to the table coming to that kind of thing, but the beautiful thing is that the technology for distributed technologies is getting smarter and better, cleverer all the time, and it's giving us loads of opportunities to distribute. You know? And that's really nice as well, because it works in places that don't traditionally have industry and infrastructure. Well, you can put containers in the desert, and you can stick solar panels on them, and uplinks, and you can have them managed by a village. You know, there is so much opportunity in this space for global distribution. The question about money, what do you think about money?
It's getting cheaper, right? We've got Docker and containers and things now, and it is reducing the price. And I guess it just needs we need more research, we need more development. At the moment, we rely on AWS. Again, they have, and companies like Google, they've bought all this technology. We need to actually get to grips and work out if we can do this cheaper now. Can we do this with less money?
Okay, so in terms of defining standards, then, has the standard been created? Is there a blueprint for a standard to move to this kind of...
Standards are so important. I'm a massive believer in standard.
Are you saying it hasn't been done yet? The standard hasn't been created, or
no, there are lots of
blueprinted it or anything like that?
No,
yet?
I think there are lots
we're
of...
right in the infancy.
Yeah, no, I think there's huge opportunity, but there are standards out there, but maybe they're not, you know, they're not what we're focusing on.
Right. Okay.
You know,
Great.
all cloud companies start with millions and millions of pounds worth of data. When I first started using Cloudflare, they weren't very big. Now they're huge, and I guess that's a big difference. They had to start small, and every cloud company had to start small somewhere. And you know, just unless you're Google, it's possible. And then you can start renting it out to other people.
How do you think you'll compete with these economies of scale? You know, for example, I would love to build my own car, but I know I would never be able to compete with the 10, 15, 20 major car companies because they have such economies of scale. I would love to build my own phone. Again, similar problem. Like, how do you think that's practical? Like, I run an on-prem data center. Do you know how difficult that is in central London with landlords, right? When every single other office in the building is WeWork office space, it's exceptionally difficult. And suddenly, like, you think people are going to, like, suddenly do that themselves? I think that's a very challenging thing to do. You know, I don't really have control of my car, but I trust it day to day.
Do kit cars exist though, right?
Yeah, but they're super expensive.
They're
super expensive.
They are.
And
Depends how much you do. My uncle bought
the
one.
kit cars are built and they left in a garage and left shiny. They don't actually solve a purpose in the real world. You don't go to Tesco in a kit car.
That's true, but somebody decided to build themselves a car, right? And they went out and they spent more money, more time. Exactly, and you enjoy building cloud. And what people enjoy...
No, I don't. It's a means to an end. I don't care what it is like. It's compute. It's ones and zeros.
But may I ask you, what is the end? What is the end?
It's a means to solving a problem that affects someone's life. Like I always talk about this at work. How does this affect my mother? Like all the things we do in this industry. How does... Oh, sorry, Andy, but UHD, HDR, blah, 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 all these things. Does anyone actually care? Does anyone actually notice? That's what matters, right? In the real world and it's not about the technology, it's about solving a real problem that affects the lives. Yep. And it's quite interesting in this industry because we can magnify, we do something once and it hits 100 million people, and it's that same, the amount of work to hit one person versus 100 million is, the marginal work is relatively small when you think about it, like the act of producing television. So that's what matters. Like the technology is just a means to an end. Like a car, I personally don't care about cars, like whether it's this type of car or this type of car, whether it's a kit car, like Why does it matter, really? At the end of the day, if it's compute and it's verifiable compute, why does it matter?
You said that about that, but most people don't know that there's 29 cameras filming people in Tesla and they're sharing that data online. So I guess your answer to the whole question is security. There are people driving Teslas, so if you've got one, anything you've done in it, they are sitting around, I'm not even kidding, it's a court case, they watch it and then they send it to their mates on WhatsApp. So, you know.
But part of the economy of scale for Tesla is that they are a motor manufacturer and they are also a data company. And the fact that they're a data company in many ways overshadows their place in the market as an auto manufacturer. So when we talk about affecting people's lives, the elephant in the room is people's security. That is what we're here to talk about
I want
tonight.
that camera to
And
detect
you are
whether there's
coming
going to be
out
a
from the
crash,
point
and
of
I
view
want the
of,
car to
well,
react, right, quicker than I can as a person.
There's 29 inside the car, though.
Yeah. And if you want to deal with economies of scale, then become that thing. Become the producer of economies of scale. Yeah. I can understand that you're struggling with a small data center, but you know this is the beginning of something.
Is this a initiative that you are leading?
Well, just right here, right now.
From here. It starts here. This is us observing the beginning of your grand plan. Or
It's an
whatever
observation.
the movement that you're trying
it's
to
it's an
get going.
observation, and we would love to see that happen. And we would love to see that happen as cybersecurity practitioners and people who are interested in civic cybersecurity. Civic cybersecurity is the idea. Most cybersecurity is corporate. It applies to the protection of the assets of businesses. But who is taking care of the cybersecurity of your gran and your kid at school and all the friends that you have? Ordinary people. And so this
But
question...
do you plan to resolve that issue? Is that why you're speaking to us
We
today?
try it.
We
We're
try,
trying.
yeah.
We're only 3 people.
Yeah.
But we are growing, but we
Yeah.
are trying. Yeah.
Yeah. We got big ideas, but yeah, thanks.
Isn't the solution regulation? So being involved in regulation. For example, there's BBC committees that go on and they talk about this in media and whatnot. This sounds like a bit of a crusade, really, but we're not going to beat the likes of Amazon, Google, and whatnot. That's never going to happen.
No.
That's an absolute fact.
No,
Actual
you
fact.
don't need to beat them.
But
You don't need to beat them anyway.
but you
right?
know, I think efforts
we don't want
best
you to
placed
beat
with
them.
regulation, because, for example, I agree with you in terms of, I don't know if anyone's watched, it's a program on BBC, and it was called Correction, and they were making fake videos of crimes, and the person that was involved in that, and it's
Was it
fiction, capture, yeah,
Oh, yeah, we write
and the
about that.
person was a broadcast engineer, and then he was killed for, exposing that. But I think, regulation is a big thing, and I don't think we get involved enough with regulation in this industry.
That's,
Good
I mean,
point. It's
yeah.
a great point. Thank you.
Does the GDPR work so far, though? So when a company like Amazon last year were fined 700 and something million pounds for breaking GDPR with our own data, they paid like a really small fine because they'll say, well, yeah, we owe you, but we can't afford it. So they pay less. And GDPR, by the way, it's just not working. It's failing. That's our strongest regulation to make sure that we are kept safe online. Most companies that I have worked for on and off, I obviously can't discuss, will say, oh, we don't really care about the GDPR because they don't come out and they don't find little people like us. But those little people may actually have all of your medical data on their systems, all of your secure data, all the data that your nan has. They may have your number plate, your car address, anything. They can. If you have a fight with someone in the street now, they can use AI to find out your address to your house within 10 minutes if they want to. So regulation works to some extent, but just allowing those things to go. I mean, we can regulate that and say, well, okay, don't allow your AI to talk to the DVLA, that's fine, but it's finding them when they've broken that and who's broken it and which group here and there. And that's the problem that the GDPR has, is finding the little guys. It's easy to find the big guys.
I'll respond. Regulation is a really important part of the solutions and the future. Regulation's always problematic because, the story is that regulation impedes innovation and progress. And the way that technology works is that it's a very free spirit, Unfortunately, it's a power relation. And eventually, what's happening, I think, we're seeing lots of regulation coming because I think that that state level governments, nation states are realizing that they're slipping, they're losing power. And, we've got the Online Safety Bill a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. We've got the new European Digital Markets Act coming in a couple of weeks. That's really going to shake things up because that is going to force interop on you. You're going to have to do interop in order to play. Now, whether or not that's going to be a good thing or it's going to have, there's always unexpected side effects. We're quite big supporters of regulation, really,
We need someone tracking it.
But there has to be a balance, and it has to be thought out. And one of the things that we've done recently on the Cyber Show is to really analyse the online safety bill and look at whose interests were represented and how through four governments it became completely distorted and misshapen with all of these tag-ons at the end from special interests, which kind of wrecked it because it's actually a very good bill. And it had road to hell paved with incredibly good intentions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd like to support your proposition. It sounds fantastic. I think in here, to the gentleman's point earlier, based on perhaps different standards and regulation in Europe, I saw Yanis Varoufakis on the news a couple of days ago talking about all the tax that's lost from the big cloud providers and technology providers, for example. In this room, we've got Comcast, Sky, maybe BBC, Arqiva, many others. Are you saying those companies couldn't create a cloud?
You definitely could.
We can't create a cloud in Europe? Of course we can.
Yeah.
It barely fits within one, maybe a tiny corner of a Facebook cloud. Like, it's nothing.
It's just for you.
But a European Union cloud based on regulations, more secure, more future-proof.
Data center and they have 100 of them.
That's okay. It's still a valid business.
Right at the beginning, you talked about, you made a quick about cybersecurity and about the myths and misunderstandings. What places of education, both literacy for people using all of these systems that we use, that there is personal responsibility and lots of misunderstanding so people can protect themselves, but also in industry as well in terms of what they're expected. And the regulation is a really important point. Just because you can do something, should you? There is illegal. But again, in terms of enforcement and the speed of which in that enforcement it happens, we know that there are juggernauts of legal cases that don't get to fruition. But the education piece seems to be right in the middle. And partnershipping is happening all the time already. I mean, people are partnershipping, but in that kind of education becomes coalescing a lot of that information and sharing that information. Obviously, having everything in one egg, in one basket, one AWS or one whatever, if something happens to that, what do we do? So, I mean, there's a whole kind of sustainability piece there, but it's really rooted in education so that people understand what's going on, maybe.
Talk about NCSC.
And that's what we do. Yeah, you do. But that's what we do.
We're really, really interested in education. We come from academic backgrounds as well. Education only gives you so much. There are motivational problems. Cybersecurity. Let me put it with this analogy. I spoke to a doctor, and we talked about she was putting on these talks about obesity, cancer, diabetes. Really, absolutely top drawer preventative medicine talks. Attended by consultants, experts whose time was worth tens of thousands a day, and getting a room full of 3 people, because nobody wants to talk about that kind of thing. Nobody wants to go to those kinds of meetings. And this is what we meet with cybersecurity, is that people, it's we don't really want to talk about that. And there is so much denial and distancing from the issues. And so what we've been experimenting with is different forms of pedagogy to bring cybersecurity ideas alive in a less traditional format, through literature, through performance, through poetry, podcasts, whatever, There are many initiatives. We've got the NCSC, which were a spin-off from GCHQ, whose remit was basically what we call civic cybersecurity, which is mass education so that your granny's not getting ripped off shopping online, that your kids aren't being spied on at school by a giant mega corporation who are hoovering up all their data for psychometric profiling so they can sell them shit some way down the line. But these are really big social problems, and we believe that the whole landscape of education actually has to change, and we have to be teaching cybersecurity. Well, we start with age 6, don't we?
Yeah.
We're both parents.
Yeah. So yeah, our children can already do some hacking, and they will already come. So my son yesterday made me so proud when he came down and he went, "So Emma sorted out my CPU," and I was like, "Right, you're getting a cake. I don't care. Like you said CPU and you're 10. Like we're done." But yeah, it does start at an early age, and we have done it. We've done a lot. We went out on the street and we spoke to parents and we spoke to groups of people and we said, "Do you know a lot about cybersecurity? No. Are you concerned? Yes. Would you like to learn more? Yes. Would you pay for it? Absolutely not." Okay, great. Who do you think should pay for it? The government. They're not going to pay for it because they have no money either. So we're just stuck in this situation where we have educators who are prepared to go out and do that, but finding someone to pay for it, like essentially they just want us to work for free, to turn up every day with no expenses, like teleport in, give our speech, and then not eat or live anywhere, and then we'll be able to do it. But at the moment, there's no real financial drive or charity that can help us to get that out there. And the NCSC are like a website. They need more funding.
We need help.
Yeah.
The rebellion is small.
I just wanted to say that there is an example in the market right now. If you want to flip the perspective just to marketing, look what Apple's done with security, that they've now marketed, our phones, they won't steal your data. Like Facebook can't take your information. There is just a communication thing where if you communicate to the audience and to your stakeholders, your business, this product is better and more like trendy or more cool because it's more secure, and that's actually a selling point. Actually, people are willing to pay. And compare that, like, why would you buy an Apple phone versus a Huawei? Like, it's everybody kind of has got that message. So there's a really obvious example in the market of how it is working, and look how much money they're making. So actually, people are willing to pay for security.
Unfortunately, that's also now being bypassed by people who worked out how to avoid that security entirely. So it's now no longer useful. Anyway, back to the earlier point you were making about a federated cloud of your own resources, which I assume you mean combining resources of the existing providers, but managing your security on your own grounds and your own encryption so that they can't get to you. Mm-hmm. So what legislation do we need to do that? Surely we need egress to be the same cost as ingress. We can't do it the way it is at the moment because there is no way to make the system join. What other things need to happen to make that possible?
No, you're right. There's an incentives problem, and if we can sort out some of those incentives, we're big fans of Dana Meadows' systems analysis, aren't we?
So much.
And when you intervene in the system, the place to go for the leverage point is at the values level. But if you can't get at the values level, then go at that incentives level. So exactly, and I think with the rollout of fibre to the home. And fibre to prem for much smaller businesses, not just SMEs, but 5-10 person. Suddenly, your on-prem asset becomes part of a bigger ecosystem. And if you can make those kind of alliances and trades, like as has already been seen in the data space, and when you think about how torrents work and things like that, I know that these are, and speaking to the media industry, many of the solutions to your future problems are anathema to you because you've come to see piracy and many technologies which will solve your future problems as the enemy technologies. They are not. They are your future.
Cloudflare are offering the same rate for ingress and egress, aren't they? Have I misunderstood their marketing?
You're right. I haven't kept up with
And there
that,
are companies like Backblaze that do a similar sort of thing, so you don't have...
Yeah.
So there are alternatives, they're just not well enough known or necessarily
Also
as easy to integrate.
Also, big backdoor,
Well,
potentially.
indeed.
And that's the
Allegedly.
issue. Allegedly, according to a PhD.
It's an unproven hypothesis.
Thank you very much, guys. I think incendiary. So we're talking about peer-to-peer craft cloud for the win. Yeah, is that's the summary?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm still trying to get my head around how big a proposition that is. So I think there's a lot of talking to do.
Everyone was really engaging, and it's always really good when you get a big discussion and you get people. It seems like arguing, but it means that they're passionate and it means that we're getting somewhere. And that's a really good sign.
What did you think? Please let us know down in the comments.
And don't forget to press subscribe, please. Press subscribe. Press subscribe.